Welcome back to some new r/malicious compliance stories, where people comply to the letter, but not the spirit of our request. I hope you had a great day. Thanks for all the likes and comments on the last video. And now let's start with the first story. It's called Followed Her Rules. I used to work for a non-profit that handled some pretty major government contracts. Over the years, my role had grown quite a bit. So much in fact that leadership wasn't even sure who I should report to. Eventually they landed on the state's executive director. Unfortunately, the director didn't like me. I think it's because I have this annoying habit of knowing what I'm talking about and not shrinking myself to make others comfortable. That didn't go over well with her. She also had her own problems. And as someone who grew up with addicts in the family, let's just say I recognized the signs. I didn't enjoy being on the receiving end of her tipsy tirades during our weekly one-on-ones, which always happened to fall on her work-from-home days. I gritted my teeth and dealt with it. Before becoming her direct report, my previous boss didn't care where or when I worked, as long as the work got done. That flexibility was everything to me. I was a single mom of two, working full-time while earning both my degrees. Then came the straw that broke the camel's back. I had medical problems in my family that I had to deal with. I let the director know and was promptly told I needed to use PTO for every hour I spent helping. Fine. Not great, but fine. Then she added, "You also need to be physically in the office from 8:30 to 5:30 per your contract." Okay, you want strict hours? You got 'em. So I stopped logging on at night. No more quietly working from 10 PM to 2 AM while my kids slept. No more finishing things on weekends. I showed up at 8:30, left at 5:30 and didn't do a minute more. A couple of weeks later, she confronted me. "Why are you telling departments you don't have time for their marketing requests?" Because I don't. I'm working exactly the hours outlined in my contract. That's all. Her face froze. You could practically see the math happening behind her eyes. She didn't change her mind though. She just hired another marketer to pick up the slack. Not great for a non-profit budget. But hey, I followed the rules. The next story is called By the Books. I used to work as a bank teller. Not exactly glamorous, but it was easy and convenient. I lived just a 5-minute walk away. You could literally see the bank from my front door. Because of that, I was almost always one of the first people to arrive. We were expected to be there by 7:15 AM, so we could open at 7:30. But managers liked us there earlier, so we could prep, logging in, filling drawers, having our morning meeting, all that good stuff. Opening the branch required at least 2 people for security reasons, and one of them was often me. I'd typically show up around 7 so things could run smoothly. At some point, someone noticed I had been clocking in after walking through the door, often before the official 7:15 start. Combine that with the number of times we had to stay late after closing, and I guess someone somewhere saw a problem. I was told there was a 6-minute grace period for clocking in early or late, and that I had clocked in too early too many times. 2 weeks of time punches would be adjusted. I asked just to be clear. "So is this you specifically telling me to stop showing up early?" They confirmed, "Yes it is." From then on I showed up at 7:20. I stopped being early. I stopped helping with setup. In fact, I started using that grace period to make sure I was 5 minutes late every day, just to avoid getting stuck doing anything extra. It was chaos. Most of the other staff didn't care much about the setup procedures. They were only concerned about balancing their own drawers. So every morning became a scramble. The branch was constantly opening late or barely making it. But hey, I was just following directions. A few weeks later, a manager asked if I could come in early the next morning to help with the monthly alarm test. Something I had been quietly doing for nearly a year with the opening manager. Apparently, the other scheduled opener hadn't shown up early enough, and the test hadn't been done before the doors opened. Sure, no problem. I showed up at 7 and clocked in. It's kind of depressing that being efficient and proactive gets treated like you are trying to game the system. But if you want me to play by the book, I'll bring a highlighter. The third story is called Fudging the Hours. I started working for a non-profit in 2019, after volunteering with them since 2000. It was supposed to be a temporary 3-month role, to help them transition while they hired a permanent replacement. 3 months turned into 15. I'm financially comfortable, debt-free and not reliant on a paycheck, so I never actually billed them during that entire time. It was supposed to be a $25 per hour Canadian, but I didn't mind doing it pro bono, as long as they eventually replaced me. They didn't. Eventually, they began pressuring me to submit an invoice. So I did. I billed them for 40 hours a week for the full 15 months. Total came to a little over 60,000. They were livid. They accused me of lying about my hours, because I was a new dad and my wife had just returned to work. Apparently, they thought it was impossible for me to put in that much time, unless I was home with the baby. When I explained that my son was in daycare, they scoffed and said, "Now you know what it's like to work an actual job, like the rest of us." Charming. They were also outraged that I was no longer volunteering my time like I used to. I explained, calmly, that the invoice only covered the TV bingo fundraiser and none of my other non-profit work. They didn't believe me. I told them, truthfully, that I had underbilled. My actual hours were higher, and my $25 per hour rate was a massive discount compared to what I charged professionally for the kind of work I was doing. IT, e-commerce, web design, marketing, HR, operations, bookkeeping, even TV production. They weren't impressed. Instead, they insisted I increase my hourly rates to my normal market rates and deduct 10 volunteer hours per week, because that's fair. I began charging between $40 and $125 an hour, depending on the task. I meticulously tracked everything. I charged for all my time, including things that had once been considered volunteer work, then deducted the 10 volunteer hours per week. After the adjustment, I was billing them for about 50 hours per week. I also hired a small team under me, on their dime, so I could scale back my own hours while still getting paid the same or more. They couldn't complain. It was exactly what they had demanded. Before all of this, I was billing around $1,000 a week. After, closer to $3,000. Eventually, I trimmed it back down to around $1,000 again. Just enough to keep things running and hand over responsibilities. They kept doubling down, accusing me of fraud and incompetence over the next 18 months. But I was past caring. They had taken a passion project and turned it into a thankless job I didn't need. So I stayed long enough to make sure my amazing team was set up for success, then walked away for good. The last story is called Most Expensive. Back when I worked in retail, we sold products designed for everyday use. Practical, affordable, middle-of-the-road quality. Not luxury goods by any stretch, but definitely functional and reliable. One day, a customer came in and explained a particular issue she was having. I listened, nodded, and began showing her several solutions. Solid, affordable products with decent reputations. Basically what most people came in for. She wrinkled her nose. "Why are you showing me all the cheap stuff? Show me the most expensive thing you've got. I only want the best. Price is no object." Well then, I smiled. If she wanted premium, I'd give her premium. I led her to the back of the store. "Here, madam, are our top shelf products. This one, premium product, works exceptionally well, has great reviews and is easy to use. Unlike the cheaper options I showed you earlier, this one only needs to be applied once or twice for full effect." Incidentally, premium product was about 5 times the price of the medium range option. I didn't stop there. And over here, we have the deluxe product. It's even more effective. Usually just a single application needed. And look at the ease of use. Deluxe product was the most expensive item in the category, bar none. At this point her whole demeanor shifted. She went quiet. Her expression tightened. "Wow," she murmured, just loud enough for me to hear. "That's expensive." I smiled politely. "Would you like to go back and look at the more affordable options?" "Yes, please," she said, visibly relieved. From that point on, she was much more open to my suggestions. Turns out price was very much an object after all. Thanks for watching the video to the end. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe. And if you have time, watch another one of my videos. Also, if you want to support me further, check out the channel membership or Patreon. And now, I hope you have a great day. See you soon. Bye bye.